Hello, welcome. My name is Juraj Mojik. I'm a senior developer here at Resco, and I'm also a voice of many of Resco webinars. And this also means that we have a new version out, and therefore we also have a new edition of our standard new features webinar series, this time about version 10.1. I want to say that we were surprised a bit about or maybe not just a bit, in your interest about this webinar. So there might be some of your colleagues that might not get in because we have a limit of 100 attendees at the same time. And at this point, I can see that there are already 73 people connected, which is absolutely fantastic. But it also means that all your colleagues or anyone who would like to watch this webinar, there will be a recording on YouTube shortly after this webinar is concluded. You who are actually here attending are muted at this very moment. That means that you cannot ask any questions directly, but feel free to write them into GoToWebinar window, and I will answer them at the end of the webinar or maybe later or during some breaks. Also, I would like to know all your ideas, opinions about our features that you will see. So again, feel free to write them into the GoToWebinar window. And I think this is everything I wanted to say at the beginning. So I'll start with the webinar. Resco Mobile CRM 10.1, our summer release for 2017, is already out. The release date was June 19th. And it contains at least 38 new features, some of which I will show you today. So here they are. I will talk about mobile analytics and improvements we've made on views. There were a couple of interesting new features for Android, and I will show you those. And then at the end, we will dive into more technical features, more technical additions like form rules, node synchronization filters, and improvements on derived projects. So let's start right away with mobile analytics. This is a nice new, even I would say a chapter for Resco, because this is again a feature we would like to invest a lot in the future. And what it will do, or what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to answer questions. Questions like, how are users working with the app? If they are performing their jobs effectively, or if they are actually completing the tasks they were assigned, or where are they performing these actions, or if they are actually visiting the customers. And as I said, this is a big chapter which will get a lot of attention, a lot of improvements in the future. But with this release, we can definitely answer the last question, if they are actually visiting the customers. Let me explain how it works. It is all built on mobile audit. If you haven't worked with this feature yet, I think you will definitely like to try it after you have seen the improvements in this version. The mobile audit is used to track application usage. It generates application usage data, which are stored on the actual CRM server. You have to enable this in Woodford. It's the auditing section. And you have to make sure that GPS position, including GPS position, is enabled. Maybe a very quick overview of this feature is basically a section here on the mobile project. You can enable it, and then you can decide if the GPS position should be included as well, if synchronization events should be included, and so on. There are two main ways how this can be used. It can either generate GPS position data when the application is running, so every couple of seconds or every couple of meters. So basically, this is just to track the actual position of a user. If you want to track the actions, what the users are actually doing, you will enable this part where for Each entity, you can decide if the create event, update, and delete event will be tracked, and also start edit and end edit, which actually means opening the edit form and closing it. So this actually isn't new. This mobile audit section has been there for a long time, but what we've built now is a way how to visualize the data. So once this data from mobile audit, once this data that your users have collected are there in the system, you can visualize them. And you can visualize them in a way that you compare this gathered audit data against the actual records. What this means is that for each location on the map, and actually for all of the locations in the range, we will consider all audit actions performed by one user in one day. This will be one visit. What I mean by this is if I will go to a customer and I will perform 3 actions. For example, I will modify an account, I will create a new contact, and so on. These all will be considered one visit, one action on the mobile audit. I think this will be, or I'll try to explain this in more detail during the demonstration. The setup in Woodford is actually very simple. You just have to enable auditing in the project. So not only that, you have to enable auditing for the users, which are actually tracking the data, you also want to enable auditing in the mobile project for the users who would like to visualize the data. You don't have to enable tracking of any entity, tracking position, just enable the auditing. Then there is a new item for the home form called audit analysis. You just put it on the home form, and it will use the map definitions which you define in the global maps sections. So which entities you have there, which views you have there, this will be available also on the audit analysis. One final side note before I go into the demonstration is that this feature requires connectivity. That means that it accesses the actual online data on the server. The reason for this is that the auditing records are not stored or not downloaded for any user. That means that they are only uploaded to the server. Therefore, you also have to access them only when there is connectivity. So let me show you a demonstration of this new feature. What I will do as for this first demo, I will use my desktop application. You should be seeing it by now. And I already prepared my project. So all I did was that I have enabled auditing, just the one checkbox, enable audit, and I have put mobile audit analysis on the home form, which is here. I can open my map. I can scroll down a bit to Slovakia, where I have 4 records. And as you can see, there are zeros in my records. That means that there are no mobile audit records that would somehow correspond to those. And the reason will be actually very simple. I will now switch to our testing dynamic CRM environment, which is here. And if I go into settings and select mobile auditing and mobile audit records, you will see that there are actually none. So what I will do now, I will create a couple of them just manually. As I said, this is probably not something you want to do. You want your users to generate this data, but for the purpose of this demo, I will create such a record. So the operation will be, I don't know, a create. It will be today at, I don't know, 2 in the morning. There is actually more information needed, but this is fine for the moment. I just need to provide latitude and longitude, so I'll quickly just a moment. I will quickly copy the latitude and longitude that I have stored here. This is actually the actual position of our headquarters, which I'm putting in. Here it is. And I can save my record. As I said, this accesses the online data, which means that as soon as I refresh the mobile audit, I will see a change. And the change is that here, because our headquarters is here in this area, this record has been already assigned number 1. So a user has visited this record during a time period. Now I would like you to focus on this settings. Here are a couple of settings for the mobile audit. I can change the precision, I can change the date range, so for example last 2 weeks, or I can even set the custom date range, and I can make sure that if some frequently visited records are not visible or if they are visible. The reason for this is that you probably want to check which accounts or which records are not visited at all. Therefore, the ones which are visited often, you might want to hide from the map completely. What I want to do here, I want to show you that if I increase this number to 5 kilometers, now all my accounts have been marked as visited. This is what I was trying to explain in my slides, is that for every single record that is in the precision distance, the visit will be counted too. We were deciding what will be the best approach, and there is a lot of confusion if we would try to add the closest one, if we would try to add just one of them. So we decided that all that are in range will be actually counted as visited. So let me put that back to 500, and what I will now do, I will put a couple of more audit records in. So I'll switch to Dynamics. And I will add some more records. So again, the operation doesn't really matter. All the operations are counted as one. And what I will do, I will add again for today, for a slightly different time, but with the same user. And I will also actually put the same latitude and longitude. So this will mean that the user has performed an action on the same location on the same day. What will happen is that if I refresh my mobile audit, you will see that, okay, I probably made a mistake, that the number increased. I probably have changed the date to a different one. What I wanted to show you is that the number would stay the same. Let me quickly check if I made a mistake. Yeah, I've selected a wrong date. So let me put that back in order. Okay. So now, if I refresh, for the same day, there is still only one visit. So if I want this number to increase, as you have seen, I have to put it on a different date. I have to put it by a different user. So really, you will only see the records which were visited by the user, by a single user at one single day. Okay, I think that this part should be mostly clear. That's why I'll move to my slides and move to the next section of my presentation about list improvements. The lists and views in general have received a lot of attention, a lot of love, a lot of improvements in our latest releases. And this time we were focusing on list footers. This is something that this is the little guy on the bottom of a view or a list, and this one is added automatically for the multi-selection mode. So with previous versions, the multi-selection mode you could add when you added some multi-selection actions. It was enabled by tapping and holding on a view, which is still the case here, but even with the new version, even if you tap and hold on any view, even the one which doesn't have any multi-commands enabled, this footer will appear, and also this selection bar. What you will see on the footer is the number of selected items, number of all items, and this is actually not the items that you see on the screen, but really all the items in the list. So all the items that are downloaded in the offline mode, or all the items on the server. Similarly, you can select, or the users can select the aggregation, so they can select, okay, I want to see the sum of estimated revenue for selected records and for all of the records. Another improvement is actually a visual one, where you can define the view to display records in a grid style, so actually in columns. What you can do with that is you can define 2 columns for the account view or multiple columns for the notes view. There is actually just one setting in the Woodford, columns on each view. You just have to set the maximum number of columns, and depending on the available screen size, there will be less columns or the maximum columns that you set in Woodford. Finally, we've done something about cell styles and visibility. Now I will start with a little example, and with something like this, we're trying to do something like this. Perhaps you want to colorize the orders, the amounts on the orders and the statuses on the orders. And you want to colorize the amount based on the actual total amount. So you will have 3 different colors based on the value. This is fine. You could do this with previous versions of Resco. You needed to define a row template. That means that you needed to define a look of one line in the list, of the whole line. But if you wanted to add another one, like I also want to have different colors for statuses, and the statuses happen to have 7 different values, so 7 different colors, that would mean that you would have to create more than 20 different templates for each combination, for combination of the amount and status. So for small amount and for each 7 statuses, you would have to create a template. Then the same thing for the blue one, same thing for the green one, and the row script, which would say which template to use, would be also very, very complex for such a simple thing. So we changed this with version 10.1, and now you can do this with just one template. And the reason for that is that you can set the style directly in the row script. So for each of the cells, you can set which style they will have based on a condition. This also works with multiple templates, so you can still be setting different templates for different lines, and also additionally afterwards set the style for each of the cells. There is one new style which will be automatically available in the option set, and that is hidden. So you can, this way you can also very quickly and easily hide the cells. Let me show you these features in a live demonstration. I will try to actually show this part on an iPad. Let me see if I can make it work. Okay. So here is my iPad, and I'll start with the footers. So if I open orders, and if I tap and hold in this view, I will immediately go into the multi-select mode, even though that there are no commands actually enabled. What you can see down here is it automatically counts the amount of items in this list, 45. Now if I select a couple of records, it will show how many are selected, how many are there in total. I can also click here to select one of the aggregation functions like sum, and I can select the field total amount. And on the bottom, I can see the sum of total amount of these three orders and the total amount for all the orders that I have in my view. So this is nice and handy. So let me continue on the orders form and let me define the coloring. This time I will not go into such a complex scenario. I will just show you how to set the styles. So what we will do here, we will set the style for the orders, for the order view, and for the total amount based on the different values here. But I will do it just with one template. So previously you would have to create multiple row templates here by creating, cloning, or adding new rows and define the complete look of each line. Now I will use just one template and we'll change the style of this cell, total amount. It has right currency style, so I will prepare a couple of styles beforehand. So I'll open this one and click add. It will be right currency red, and I will change the background to something red and maybe just a little transparency. I will create similarly green and blue. Green. And a little blue. Like this. And now I just have to set the style for the cell in the row script. So this will be starting as expected. So if entity total amount is greater than 100,000, now I will do something that is new. I will set on the row that the total amount style, and I'll set this one to be green. I'm pretty okay with these orders. Now, if they are just more than 10,000, I'll choose a different style for that cell. So I'll go for total amount style blue. And if there is no value or very low value, I will mark it as red. So this is it. Instead of creating different templates, I just have one template and set the style. Let me show you the app. Perform quick synchronization. And on the orders, now I have my colors. The final thing I want to show you is the column organization of the view look. And I will show you how to set up the notes. And this part might be actually interesting if you haven't tried it or didn't know how to do it. It might be quite useful because I will show you how to show the picture, which is stored within the note on the view right away. So I will create a grid, just the name of my view. I will change the width and height to 60. And I'll put the title back in, make it a bit smaller. Change the style to something smaller as well. This is fine. Now I will add an image on my view. And I want this image to display the content of the note. So what I will do, I will edit the style, name this one note image. And here I'm defining how the view will actually get the data of that image. And by default, it's taking a node which is called list image and the node which is actually regarding to that particular record. But I don't want to do that. I want to select a different field. I want to take the node, which is actually this node, which I'm showing on the view. And I also want to add a placeholder image. I will put it into the controls folder, call it document png. And I don't have this image yet. I will put it there later. I will set the style. Okay, let me change one more thing. I'll make it center, so it's nice centered in the view. I will change that style here. And actually, what I did so far was already available in the previous versions, so none of this is new. But if you would define a view like this, it would be displayed just as one column with these images. What I want to do is to have multiple columns. So let me put there 6 columns at tops. As I said, this is the maximum value. That means that if there is enough screen space, we will put 6 columns. If there is less screen space, we will put less columns. So I will save this. I'm almost ready. I just want to add my placeholder image in here. So I will select controls and I will select my image. I will name it document and let's select colorize. It will actually change the color of this icon based on the theme color of my application. And this should be it. So I can again switch back to the iPad and synchronize. Now if I go into the accounts, open one of my accounts and select notes, I have here my grid view. So instead of displaying just rows, now we have also columns. And depending on the screen size, now I have only 5. If I enlarge this, I can have maximum 6 columns. So these were the improvements in the views. So I'll go back to the presentation and continue with with improvements for one specific platform, and that is for Android. In the last webinar, I've announced the offline maps, which is a great new feature, but it was until now available only for iOS. We are now announcing support for Android. Let me quickly recap what this means. It means that we are using Mapbox, a different map provider, who allows also the offline capability. You just have, as the user, have to go into the setup and select that you want to use Mapbox. The admins in Woodford will define regions which will be available offline for their users. These regions will be downloaded during synchronization and they will be available when there is no connectivity. Also, last time I've announced that this is definable only via XML. New thing, we have editor in Woodford for this, so now you can define it or much more conveniently. The editor looks like this. The offline setup is for all the maps that you have, so even though you might have here multiple map definitions, the offline setup will cover all of them. When you open that, you can add multiple regions, and when you will be doing that, you will be defining type. You will put the name for your regions, then define the actual region by specifying its corners, and then specifying the minimum and maximum zoom level. What's a cool thing is you can click on From Map and select the region directly on the map without trying to write it all down by yourself. On Android, we have one new feature which I think you will like a lot, and that's the call screen. That means that we have now integrated with the call screen on Androids, and during incoming calls we can show information. This information will be taken from contacts view, actually from your contact records. There is currently no way how you can specify which information it will take, so it will automatically take only contacts that are owned by the particular user. Once this is shown on the screen, there are a couple of actions, like you can open that contact in Mobile CRM, you can import the call data into Mobile CRM, and you can hide the window if it's blocking something else on your screen. For all this to work, the users just have to enable call detection in setup. And I will show you all this in a demonstration. And this is actually my premiere of trying to show you a screen of Android device. But let me first start with Woodford. Just a moment. Okay, let's here. Okay. So in Woodford, in my other project, I have already defined my offline map. So if I go into Maps and check the offline setup, here it is. There's the one which I have already downloaded on my device. The reason for that is that the actual download of the map can take quite some time, and I don't want to really bother you with that. So this is a segment region for Bratislava. It has the zoom level from 4 to 8. I can add one more, and I can click on From the Map. And as you can see now, I'm seeing a Bing map, and I can select the region. I can zoom in a bit, and basically this visible region that I have here will be automatically translated into the coordinates here. Unfortunately, only the zoom level is something we cannot detect, so the zoom level will stay 8, and you will have to change it by yourself. Okay, this was the Woodford setup, but I have it set it like this in my application, so let me try to switch to the window of my device. So here we go. I apologize for the screen quality. I hope it will be a bit better in a moment. But anyway, what I will do as the first thing, I will disable Wi-Fi. I will disable my mobile data. So at this moment, I'm completely without connectivity. Fortunately for me, I'm connected via cable to the computer, which transmits the screen. I have to make sure that here on the map, in the show map, I have selected Mapbox. And because I previously downloaded the regions, if I open the map, I will actually see something. On the bottom, you see Mapbox, which actually tells me that, yeah, you are really using Mapbox. And when I start to zoom out, my pins will start to appear, and I can actually work with my map. And if I zoom enough, let me zoom it a bit more, you can see that this is the region I have downloaded. So it's only a rectangle, which is now available offline, only certain zoom levels, and the rest of the word is actually gray. All right, what I want to do next is I want to ask my colleague Anna, who is here with me, to actually call me. So I don't have her number in my mobile phone, but I have it in my CRM. And I can immediately see her name, and I can now open this contact. If I would tap here on the three lines, I can move this window away and back. So I will click on Open Contact, which will open the mobile CRM application, and it will open the record for Anna. I can even check her details, and if I wouldn't decline the call, I can check on what we are working on, and I can then maybe answer this call with more details that I would have if I wouldn't check mobile CRM. So that was Android. I hope that you will like this part where you can actually see who is calling from CRM. And let me show you a couple of more things and talk about a bunch of other topics like derived projects. If you haven't encountered this feature, it's something we call project hierarchy, is where you can have one master project and then inherit child projects from it, meaning that if you change something in the master project, even afterwards, even after you have derived the other projects from it, the child projects will get these changes which you have done in the master, which is very cool, which is very useful in many situations. And it's based on files. That means that each file, each part of the project that you modify in the child will then be overriding the parent's customization. If you want to know more, my previous webinars cover this. But there were actually a couple of usability issues. The first one was how to know which form or which chart was modified in the derived project, which one is taken from parent. This wasn't visually manifested somewhere in Woodford. Also, the second problem was that you've modified something in the child project and you decided, okay, I don't want this change. I want it to go back to the state of the parent project. I have even maybe deleted something in the child project and I want to get it back from the parent. So how can I do this? And we have two solutions for that. The first thing is that now on views, charts, and forms, you can see the state. Inherited means that it's taken from parent and it's not modified. When there is nothing for the state, that means that it's new element in the child. Overridden means it has been modified in the child project, and if it's deleted, it exists in parent, but it has been deleted in child. If you have deleted something and you would like to return it back to the parent state, you can just click restore and it will go back there. Similarly for all the overridden elements like forms, views, if you want to get back to the parent state, just click restore. What I want to note here is that currently this is only available for UI elements, so for forms, views, and charts. So if you would like to have this on the offline HTML files or in the styles or in anywhere else in the application, you will have to wait for one of our future updates. The form rules actually got one of the updates that you, our partners and customers, requested really a lot. And this is, here I'm talking about the functionality which is depending on role. So, if you have a role-specific functionality, like your managers want to do something that your salespeople can't in the mobile application. In Resco, you have to create different mobile projects for different roles. And this is how you can achieve that. But when there is only a small bit of functionality different, what you could do is you could use the project inheritance, so the project hierarchy I just talked about, but also that seemed like too much for such a small thing. So right now, in version 10.1, you can get the user roles at runtime on the form rules, on the view rules. Configuration roles now contains all roles that a user has, so you can check using the contains operator if it's a system user, if it's a manager, if it's anyone else. What you can use is the name of the role, or you can use a GUID, a specific ID of that role, and this might be very useful, both of them in scenarios where you have some migration of, if you have two environments and you migrate between them and so on. So you might want to use GUID, which is more precise, or just the name if you are migrating or doing something similar. There are actually more improvements. I'll just make note of two. And one of them is that on party lists, now you can use contains and element at operators. So for party list fields like required attendees or similar, you can check if a specific user is there or who is a user at the first element and so on. Also, both of these were actually requested by some of our customers and partners. You can now make sure that commands are also custom commands are visible for the newly created record. That wasn't available before. So let me show you a quick demo of the roles functionality. So I'll go back into my projects in Woodford. Okay, here we are. And I will do a very simple thing. On the edit form, I will add one more field, the owner field. And on the load of my form, I will add a condition and check in the configuration in the roles, which are current users roles, if it contains sales manager. That's the role for the user I'm using on the mobile device. If it contains, I'll make sure that this field, owner ID, is visible. So yeah, make it visible. If it doesn't contain this role, so probably it's just a salesperson, shouldn't be able to change the owner, I will make that field not visible at all. So this is it, very simple, just checking if the roles contain a specific role. And I can go back to my iPad, synchronize with my user. And if I open accounts, you can see that the owner field is here. And that's because my user is a sales manager. That was a quick demo. So I'll just conclude the rest of the presentation and mention one more very interesting feature, and that is the synchronization of notes and clouds documents. So by default, notes and clouds documents, these big files usually, they are downloaded for corresponding downloaded records, so actually only for accounts, the notes which are there will be downloaded. So if there is a note which doesn't have any matching record in mobile CRM, it will not be downloaded. And also, if their content is smaller than a setting in the application or in Woodford. This is a very simple look at how it works. Actually, this is much more complex, but let's say these are the two rules. And it is a very dedicated, separated logic at the end of synchronization. There is no way to add more specific filters, that is, except of a synchronization filter on nodes, where you can define that only nodes which start with W are downloaded, but that is not very useful. What we have in version 10.1 is filtering for annotation and cloud documents. You can define which file types which be synchronized, and for each file type you can define the maximum size of such a file, which will be downloaded during synchronization. The users can on demand download that file when they have connectivity. For attachments, we have even more. You can define for which entities you don't want to synchronize nodes. And for each entity, you can set up how many attachments, maximum amount of attachments, which will be synchronized. And for each entity, you can also set up which file types will be synchronized. At this moment, it is all defined by XML. Instead of showing you a demo of this, I will attach an XML example of such a XML file under the YouTube video, and all the attendees of the webinar will get it via email. So this is how it looks for the cloud documents. There is a specific section, files filter, and you can define the amount of disk size overall the cloud document can occupy. So they cannot occupy more than 1 megabyte in my case. Maximum file size which will be downloaded during synchronization is 100 kilobytes approximately, and then I can specify for each file suffix, so file type, maximum file size. If I opt for asterisk, all the remaining files, so I only download JPEGs and all the remaining files are not being downloaded at all. If I would use -1, that would mean that I do not limit it at all. For the nodes, you can set max attachment size, which is a standard setting, but you can also set which entities do not have attachment sinks at all. And also for annotation entity which is attached to account, you can set up max file size in general or file size for maximum file size for each file type. The full example will be attached under the YouTube video or delivered to you by mail. So all you have to do with that is you will have to create a file which is called blob-store filter XML, then export the Woodford project where you want this to have applied, rename it to zip, insert the blob-store filter XML into configuration folder of the zip file, rename the zip file back to .woodford, and import the project back and override the project that you want to use or create a new one. And that should be it. There's one more feature I would like to talk about, is the Google Contact synchronization. It's very simple, just one checkbox in Woodford in the Google section, and you can now see also Google Contacts in your mobile application. Obviously, there is a lot more which I haven't covered today. There are workflows for chat. So in Dynamic CRM, you can generate Resco chat messages much more easily when something happens. So create them automatically. In mobile reports, you can have now different bold, italic, underline styles. So very easily manage styling options there. In JavaScript Bridge, we have made great improvements, setting different lookup views and so on, problems that you have faced and have reported to us. Now you can use editable list also on calendar, and you can track external users using mobile audits. So when I was talking about mobile analytics, you probably have been thinking about the internal employees of the company, but with this release you can extend this also to the external users, and we will track their data as well. Since we are at almost the end of my presentation, I will now check if there are any questions. And if you have more, feel free to write them right now. So there is a question about the mobile analytics, how the precision is calculated. So actually what we do is we take the position of each record you have there on the map, and we add the precision to that. So if you have a record, and if the mobile audit visit has happened within a precision range of that record, it will be counted as one visit. Another question about mobile audit, let me just read it for a sec. So the question is about if you can have just managers access the mobile audit. Yes, definitely. It's a setting in the mobile project, basically meaning that if you have different projects for managers, different project for salespeople, you will enable mobile audit, the mobile analysis only in the manager's project. A question about parent-child hierarchy, how many levels there are available. This is not limited by Resco in any meaningful way, so if you want to have 10, 100, this should work as well. If you are using sum on the views, which currency is used, I think this is the same as on the charts. So on the charts, if you are summing through records which have different currencies, it will use the base currency which you have set in your CRM system. Question about a map just based on the mobile audit data. The problem with just creating a map for mobile audit is that the mobile audit entity is not available itself in Woodford. You cannot just enable it for the mobile project, so you will have to wait until we add something like this. But if you have any ideas or any types of the maps you would like to see, just let us know, and we will consider adding such a feature into our solution so you don't have to build it yourself. A couple of more questions coming in. So again, mobile analytics, offline capability. So if the mobile analytics would work without connectivity, as I mentioned, this is not at the moment possible. The reason for this is that the users generate quite a lot of mobile audit data. They are only uploading this data to the server, so the users are actually not storing any mobile audit data, and they are not synchronizing the mobile audit data back. This would be quite an overhead. Therefore, you have to access this data only with connectivity. Maybe if it will turn out that you need to make decision based on mobile audit data also in offline mode, we can consider enabling that, but I don't think it's a great idea because, as I said, a lot of data would need to be synchronized. There is a question which is slightly unrelated to what we have seen today, and that's if there is a way how to find out if the synchronization has completed. That is possible with JavaScript, and there is the global event onSync finish. Check it in our JavaScript bridge documentation, the JavaScript bridge reference, and I hope you will find it. If not, get back to us, to our support channel. MDM improvements, if there is any documentation, there are actually news about our documentation. There are a lot of improvements lining up, but at this moment we don't have any specific documentation regarding this topic, but we are working on it. Okay. There is a question about the map. If the user has to have the location enabled to see the location on the map. If they want to see their own location on the map, then obviously. If they want to see the location of the other records, then it's not necessary. There is question about the Resco Mobile audit, that you can see it in the Woodford. As I said, even that wouldn't help you because the data is not stored locally, so you would need to access that online. But as I said, perhaps this is better to discuss on a call or via emails. So feel free to write me an email about your ideas. Couple of last questions. So one question is about what happens on the map when they turn the location off. Obviously, the map will still work, but they will not see their own location. And the question about the new documentation, it's planned for our next release. So sometime around September, our new documentation documents should start surfacing, and you should start getting them available. So this seems to be all the questions for today, but there is one more thing I wanted to talk about or notify you about, and that is our annual conference, Resco Next 2017. We have already started the preparations, and we are already starting the registration for the Amsterdam, so for our European version of the event. The registration is already open. Just head to resco.net/next and you can check the agenda, the sessions which are already planned, and you can also already register for Atlanta. The registration will open in a few days, so if you are watching this from YouTube, it's probably already opened, and you can still pre-register to get some information right away. I highly recommend this event because it's a great opportunity to know more about our solution, to really connect with other people working with the same tool, to get to know Resco team members. There will be definitely a bunch of Resco people, including myself, so a great opportunity to meet the person behind the voice. But in general, great event. This year we are even improving the business content, so if you were worried that the content might be too technical, we have you covered, because we are now targeting more also the business audience, so business analysts, even salespeople should get very interesting sessions there. But we are still thinking about the technicians, the developers, and it will be also very technically oriented as well. So thank you very much for your attention today. I hope you liked what you have seen and that the new features will be very useful to you in your current and future projects. So, see you, hear you next time.